webinar. And I welcome you all to our ISO knowledge sharing webinar series. And today's session is based on how an ISO standard is developed and applicable globally. So, first of all, I would like to introduce you to AIS, who they are. So, Alvin Integrated Service is an ISO compliance training and certification provider. As per the origin, Alvin Integrated Service is your friend in continuity, resilience, and development. Our services, their services spread across various domains, help individuals and organizations to learn, work, and grow. We have been helping professionals to prepare as per when, not if, an error occurs. AIS has been connecting with people, groups, and organizations to extend its periphery. So now I would like to introduce you all to our speaker. So today's session is being conducted by Mr. Sesha Prakash Kusuman. He is from Muscat, Oman. He is the group vice president for Promotas group of entities and SBU head for Promo Secure Consulting. So he's providing advocacy and consulting on information assurance and security. His professional certification count is 30 plus, which includes CISA, CISM, CRISC, CGEIT, COVID-5, and CSX, CISSP, CICISO, CPISI, along with ISO certifications in ISMS, LA and LI, BCMS, LA and LI, Risk Manager, ERM, Disaster Recovery, IT governance, compliance management, etc. He is the past board member of ISACA, Muscat, and Bangalore chapters and has a personality among the professionals there. He is also a member for many budding professionals. So began his career in banking for 26 years and shifted his career path after obtaining CISA certification. For the past 14 years, he is into information assurance, information security, and management systems. With about 40 years of rich and hands-on experience, he is exposed to several businesses, professionals, and commercial challenges and has held various managerial, advisory, and board positions. He is an authorized trainer for APMG, ISACA, and PECB. So now I'm going to tell you what is our today's webinar agenda. So first of all, our agenda is, first of all, we'll discuss about how ISO came into existence. Then we will talk about standards present available prior to establishment of ISO. Then various stakeholders of ISO, and then Sir will told us about the life cycle of an ISO standard. Then stages in the development of a standard and the extent of participation by stakeholders and general public. And lastly, we will discuss adoption of a ISO standard, mandatory or voluntary, consequences of either choice. So now I would invite Mr. Sesha Prakash Kusuma to enlighten us with his knowledge of the industry. Also, it is our honor to have you, sir, on the platform today. And before moving on, I would like to mention a special note for our attendees. Kindly feel free to ask any questions between the seminar by dropping them into the chat box. As per the speaker will be answering them towards the end of the session. So yeah, you are allowed to send your queries in the chat box only. And we will try our best to make this session as informative and knowledgeable for everyone as possible. So now over to you, Mr. Sesha Prakash Kusuma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Adya. It was a pleasure listening to you. And thank you for that introduction that you have given me. Okay.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you today.
Okay. Yes. The subject is how an ISO standard is developed and applicable globally. So this is what I am going to talk about today, and I hope it will be a learning for the listeners, and I hope you find it useful over a period of time. Okay, good evening to all of you, and in some other parts of the world who are joining here, good morning and good afternoon too. Right? It gives me a very great pleasure to be able to present this version of how an ISO standard is developed and accepted globally. I really thank Alvin Integrated for providing me with this platform and an August forum to provide some knowledge and input on this ISO mechanisms. Though Adya did introduce me, I would like to briefly introduce myself very quickly. I have a small disclaimer here. I'm a bit of a fast talker. If somebody feels that I need to go a bit slow, I would suggest you get into with Ms. Adya, and who will communicate it back to me. Right? So with that, my name is Sesha Prakash Kusuma. I'm a group vice president. My organization name is Promatas, which is based out of Dubai, Muscat. And I head a strategic business unit known as Prama Secure. Okay, my domain of expertise is in banking, information security, GRC, BCMS, IT, disaster recovery. My location is Muscat, Oman. I have been on the board of the ISACA chapters, both in Oman and in Bangalore. Okay, besides this, I have served as a board member in several other organizations. Well, the same thing, I don't want to repeat here. This is a very brief outline in a bulleted manner of what I have achieved so far in my line of work, right? So let's move to the subject. I normally start off with some kind of an vocabulary, right? Otherwise, people might not understand a particular meaning. So the topic being how an ISO standard is developed and how it becomes globally accepted, there are some words that we need to know. But before that also, let us pose a question for ourselves. What do we mean by a standard? Do we really need a standard? If yes, what should be the components of that standard? Whether it should be acceptable to a large and wider population of the users or to a specific set of people. And also, if people are already practicing some kind of an ISO, you will know that standards tend to have a language of their own. However, for the purpose of simplicity, I have brought in some dictionary meaning here, and it is my normal practice to start off any presentation with these words so that we are on the same page, because the words can mean something else to different people. So let us look at the word standard itself. There are two types in practice. One is a technical standard, which has technical specifications, and another is a management standard, which assists managements to perform their managerial activities. Again, there are two levels within a standard, that is mandatory and voluntary. Okay. So if you are looking at the definition itself, it says something used as a measure, as a norm, or a model in comparison and evaluations, or the degree of scale of the quality. That is a standard. This is a definition. So then we look at the word guidance. So what is the word guidance? It is something that you take an advice or information that is aimed at providing a solution or a methodology to address an issue. Normally, guidance is an authoritative or it is a respected source. Now, there is a difference between guidance and guidelines. So what's a guideline? A guideline is a statement or a process that determines a repeatable end result. So that is the crux of that guideline. It should be able to have a repeatable end result for that given course of action. Well, this definition is true for a standard also. The difference between a guideline is that it is not mandatory and it can be accepted in its parts. The full guideline need not be accepted. There is also a possibility that a guideline can be twisted to make it suitable for that particular purpose by an organization or a person. That is possible. That leverage is given for a guideline. The wisdom of its purpose or the usage is left to the user, how you are going to use it. So that is the reason it is a guideline and it is not mandatory. Now, guideline is one thing, and so what is advisory? Advisory is a power to provide a solution or a recommendation without the need of enforcement through an authority. Unlike rules or regulations which are imposed, an advisory is a set of information that is provided, and whether the recipient wants to accept it or not, it is his call. Then what is a framework? A framework is a basic structure that provides relevant components underlying a system or a concept as a path towards a wholesome requirement. So that means to say, if I can give you the example of a framework, a chest of drawers or an alimara or a rack, where you can keep anything you want in that particular place or replace it with something else. But the chest of drawers do remain and make the framework. Whether you keep books, whether you keep things, whether you keep clothes is up to you. That is the flexibility a framework gives. But then the structure is rigid. So that particular drawer or that particular shelf goes in that particular place. That is what is a framework. Then there is one specific word that is always referred to in a standard, that is known as normative reference. Normative reference means the vocabulary or the clauses of a different reference document that are applicable in context to this standard without the need for repetition of all of the clauses that you are going to give. So I hope we have understood what the vocabulary requirements are. So let us pose a question for ourselves. Did standards exist before ISO? Okay, so let us contemplate whether this did exist, and if yes, where were these origins and in what context it is with our country. Okay, standards can be traced back to the Harappan and Mohenjo-daro civilizations so far as India is concerned. So before common currency arrived, goods were exchanged for other goods. So you know that is meant as barter systems. So in barter systems, there was always a question: did one of them receive more value than that is due in such an exchange? So these were all the things that were to be addressed at a later point of time. Basically, standards started with lengths, volumes, weights, measures, time, and other mediums of exchange. Let us walk through this small evolutionary process very quickly. So, as per the evacuations and archaeological findings in the various parts of the world, there is sufficient evidence that uniformity existed. It did exist. What I meant to say is the standard way of doing things did exist but it was very specific to that particular society, especially when it comes to length, weight, volume, or any other such measure. The earliest known uniform system of weights and measures seem to have been created at some time in the 4th and the 3rd millennia before Christ among the ancient people of Indus Valley, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Elam, which is currently in Iran. So you know all these civilizations were very close to each other. Indus Valley was on the northwestern side of the Indian subcontinent. Egypt was on the northeastern side of the African continent, and like this. So you can see that these civilizations were close enough, and the possibility of measures, standards was possible. So let us look at length. First, it was measured.
Sorry for interrupting you, sir. Actually, attendees are also curious to show, to see your presentation. So,
Come
do
again,
we
come
able
again,
to share it?
come again.
Actually, attendees are curious to see your presentation also. So, do we have one?
Are you not seeing the presentation?
No, we are not able to see your presentation right now.
Oh my God, I have gone through so many slides now. Oh, one second, one second, one second.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Yeah, you must permit me to share. That is the reason it has not
Uh,
happened.
okay.
I thought it was shared.
Mr. Shesh, it is already permitted to you. You can start your presentation.
Okay. Because when I clicked on share, I thought it came. And then,
Yes, now it is visible to us.
Yes, now it is being started.
sorry about that glitch. Okay. I will quickly run through this. This was the vocabulary that I was talking about. And this was about Mohenjo-daro and Harappan I was talking about. So let me come quickly. Okay. Anyway, we haven't really lost much. Uh, I can take off from here too. I hope all of you are able to see now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, so as you can see that the hand was the first measure that was used, the limbs, the fingers or the hand. So we had that digits, I think within our as kids. So this moved to a standard mechanism of a scale. So which had proper markings so that it is a standard. Now when you come to volume, you had this seer. This seal was there across the Indian subcontinent and up to modern Iran. But again, the volume was different within particular regions, and in some places it could be more, it could be less in some other places. So this gave way to this standard of units of volume. So now let us look at weight. We were using stones earlier as a weight, and that was the stone. You can never have a standard in a stone, but approximately yes. If you can look at the British system still for a long time was using, they were calling the measure itself as 1 stone, 2 stone and things like that before the metric ton, not metric ton, the British ton and pounds and other things came, right? So now it has come to a standard weight mass, which is represented by weight. So then comes to smaller items where sensitive items you need to measure. We were using, if you recall, or if you have seen an old goldsmith, he was measuring using this carob seeds. These carob seeds fortunately had some kind of a uniformity in their weightage, and it was possible to weigh gems and gold jewelry. So, but today it has come down to electronic scales, which can go up to a accuracy level of 6 digits. Then barters faded away and we started getting currencies. And these are the old mint metal coins which were used. Refinement came in. This is also coming from 1000 BC coins. Now we have our own currencies. So why I am telling you all these things? Because unless we have this background, it might be a bit difficult to understand why you need a standard. So ultimately, conceptually, what it has brought in is that a requirement is being specified in a particular manner that should be equitable and repeatable. What do you mean by equitable? It should be fair to all and sundry. It should be fair to everybody concerned. It should be fair to all the stakeholders. That is what we mean by equitability. And it should be repeatable. For anybody, it should be repeatable. So for that, what is the next step? This specification must be frozen. right? Now, once the specification is frozen, then it becomes a standards. But you must also remember, despite the fact that it is frozen, over a period of time, understandings change, methods change, mechanisms change, technologies change. So with that, the standards also evolve. So what did we have before ISO? So we had BSI, that is the British Standards Institute, which was established in 1901. Then we had the French standards, AFNOR, which was established in 1926. Then comes from Germany, which was established in 1917, and Standards Australia in Australia established in 1922. So briefly, this is given. This is only a representation. There were hundreds of other standards, but you must remember that before 1947 or 1946, most of the world was colonies of some European company or the European country or the other, and hence the standards pertaining to the popular ones which we saw right now was being in vogue in those countries. And only after the Second World War and after the decolonization happened across the world, there were many other countries that were formed, and they started coming as a part of the standard evolution within their own country. Now coming to India, in India we had in 1947 the Indian Standards Institute. So this Indian Standards Institute was renamed as Bureau of Indian Standards. So if you had seen the older logos some 25 to 30 years ago, we still had the top ISI mark. But nowadays you can see only the logo which is quite below. So with this, I will walk you very quickly through the history and story of the ISO itself. So the story of ISO began in 1946. In 1946, during the why did we need the ISO when countries had their own standards? During the Second World War, many nations had to fight together. Due to individual countries' own standards, compatibility in arms and ammunitions inhibited certain synergies to come across between them, to develop between them. So that is where the necessity for a common global standard prevailed. This is what that led to the formation of the ISO. So I will briefly walk you through the history of the ISO over a period and how countries in the world found representation on this body. This is also the reason of the second part of my title, which says why standards are acceptable globally. Now let us look at the word ISO itself. Is ISO International Standards Organization? No. Though we say as ISO, it is actually pronounced as ISO. ISO being a Greek word for equality. So why was this word chosen? Why was this phonetic chosen? Though we call it as ISO, it should actually be termed or called as ISO phonetically. This is because if it were to be a standards organization, each country will translate it, and once the translation happens, there would be a different acronym within each country. So that doesn't show which organization it is. So ISO started thinking that, well, the standardization should begin with us, and they called themselves ISO, so that the word anywhere in the world will be known as ISO. So let me take you through a few slides which will talk about the story of the ISO or ISO. So this was the first office in Geneva. They moved there in 1950s. They had the central secretariat with just 5 members to start with. This is the cover of the ISO standard number 1. And as it was started with a metric, that is the length, that is the geometrical product specification. This is the first journal that was published in 1952. they felt that unless they show to the world what they are doing, their work may not become popular. So they had their in 1955 they had the General Assembly in Stockholm. By then they had a lot of members, starting with around 35, and there were almost 68 standards by the time of 1955. So as children, we would have read that British system of pound, foot, and gallon, and the French system of metric system of meter, meter, kilometer, etc. So in order to standardize, ISO brought its own international system of units. Unfortunately, it didn't get popular. Countries still followed their own old ways. So if you go to countries today, in volume is still measured in either liters or gallons. Distance is still measured in miles or kilometers. So this discrepancy is still there, which is the need for our conversion tables. Okay. One thing that really happened with ISO is that it ended it brought to the end the technical nationalization. That means to say, this measurement is specific to my country. When you come to my country, you have to use this system. If I go to another region, then I have to adapt to that region's specification of mass, volume, length, whatever it is. So that is something that this brought a neutrality about. It brought the end of technical nationalism, despite the fact that political nationalism continued. Okay. So soon and slowly, with the increase in the membership, it started getting an international focus, and with international focus, they had a lot number of other countries that joined the ISO. So I would like to talk about the Indian membership. It is ISO is basically a global. It is a global network, not of people. It is a global network of the standards bodies. So each country has their own standard body, and this body gets represented on the ISO. So the members are the foremost standards organization. Why they are using the word foremost standards organization is, some countries have more than one standards organization. So a more popular or a government represented or a government recognized standards organization finds its position on the ISO at the global level. And there is only one member per country. That is something that we need to understand. We cannot have multiple members because it also carries a voting right. So every country, big or small, gets only one vote. So each member represents in his own country the ISO as a counter for the standards body. It must be known that individuals or companies cannot become ISO members. Okay. Now, I would, I did not bring out the list of all the 165 countries, but I brought about that of India. So here you can see that India, the acronym for India is BIS, Bureau of International Indian Standards. Then it denotes the membership, that we are a member body. TC is for Technical Committee, and PDC is for Policy Development Committee. So we are having the number of people participating are 667 on the various technical committees. There are 250 technical committees, and there are hundreds of policy development committees, because it has a lot of subcommittees. So we are, as India, we are participating in 5 policy development committees. You must remember, policy development committees are quite strong. Technical committees are for building up various kinds of specifications. So what are this is, I would like to go into a little more detail about the type of the members. Each country can be a full member, a correspondent member, or a subscriber member. A full member will have all the rights to participate in the development of every kind of standard and have a say in the policy of the ISO. and they can also sell the ISO standards, whatever that has been developed by ISO. So a correspondent is one, they're also, the correspondent is one which don't have the voting rights. That is what they say, that you cannot participate in the governing of the ISO. And a subscriber just can sell the standards, but cannot do any policy or governance, right? There is one more member known as P member, who is a participating member in a committee, who also has a obligation to vote on any of the work of a working group. Okay, so this is at the cost of repetition. Can I or my organization become a member? No, it is meant only for countries. But do you mean to say I cannot take part at all? Well, if you feel that you are an expert in any of the fields of the standard, then you can, though you cannot become a member directly, you can take part in the expert committee, but you must be recommended through your country's standards organization. So how to go about it? There is a small link which has been given below. If somebody feels, I know a lot of people who are on some kind of a committee or the other, because they are representing their country on the ISO body. So there is a link that has been given here in the bottom. Once it is shared, you can use the link and see. And if you feel that you can contribute, you can definitely contribute to the development of a standard, right? Okay. Now, when any organization starts, or when any organization gets to be established, they must have a purpose, they must have a principle, they must have a practice, or they must know what their goal is. So as a part of ISO, they felt that they needed something to state to the world as to how it is to be done, right? So they formed 4 principles in the development of this standard. The first one is that the standard needs to respond to the market requirements. That was the first need. So, but who has to decide whether it is a need or not? Well, when as a part of the development of the standard, I will tell you that, right? Then next principle is it should be based on global expert opinion. That means to say it has to be based on a consensus, or everybody should agree, or a majority should agree that yes, it can be published and it can be used across the world or globe. Okay. And it is developed through a multi-stakeholder process. That means to say no one person, a bigger country cannot say, well, as a country, I am big. I am giving you more donations, or I am giving you space to work from, so I should have more say. No. So it is through a multi-stakeholder process, and it is based on consensus. That is where a majority of the people agree. Now, how do they agree? Is through a voting process, which again I will show you as a part of the presentation. So, like I told you earlier, there are technical standards and there are management standards. My focus here is only on the management system-based standards. So, coming to the issue of how the standards are developed, these systems, you would have seen the ISO 9000, ISO 14000. You must excuse me, I'm also used to call it as ISO, not ISO. For 45,000 or 55,000, each of them give their own management perspective of the activity that is to be done. As a practitioner of the ISO standards, I felt that I need to know why it is developed or how it is developed. And I also felt when Alvin Integrated asked me, I felt that this is a great way of imparting this information to all the listeners. So one thing you must excuse, what you already saw and what you will also see is my presentation is full of text only. The reason for not having infographics or only Q-based text is when I share this, you should be able to use it at some other point of time. So that is the reason it is slightly text-based. You must excuse me for it. It might look overpopulated, but then this is what I wanted to give back. Okay. Another disclaimer is this entire information is in the public domain. There is nothing that is intellectual property here. but some of the additions which can come in the form of intellectual property is only my own experience, which I have added to make this presentation, right? So one of the things from a management standard perspective as against a technical standard is a management standard is a process approach. What do you mean by a process? There is an input, there is a transformation, and there is an output. So there is a standard input and there is a method in which it is transformed, and the output is always identifiable, is always almost repeatable, is always almost similar. That is the reason that is a process. So a management standard, because it is a business requirement, it has to be process only, and it has adopted the process approach, uh, and it will address that particular subject which the standard pertains to. So it lays down management based do's and what is required. It doesn't say how it is to be done, right? But normally, if you are looking at a standard has its own family of other standards. For example, if you are looking at 27001, which is an auditable standard, has a family of 35 other standards right up to 27701, which is for privacy. Likewise, though that is the extreme number, 27701 is an extreme number, but in between there are a lot of standards which guide you either based on industry or based on vertical or based on a specific requirement. There is one more thing that you need to know about a standard, is that a standard always has one standard number which ends with 000. Normally, that standard always talks about the vocabulary that will be used in that particular series of standards or families of standards. Now, if you are taking 22301, there are at least 6 standards in that family. If you are taking 9001, there are at least 15 to 18 standards in that family. All of them provide the additional guidance on how it should be going. So as you are seeing the image, you can see some of them are technical and some of them are managerial. Okay. So let us start with the process. So at the outset, each ISO, each standard that needs to be done will go on to a standards development track. This development track is a time-based track. The time can be split into 12, 24 or 36 months. Okay. So it starts with inception to publication. So it depends upon the urgency. Based upon the urgency or the requirement, the track is assigned by the particular committee. Again, we are going to see those committees. One more thing that really needs to be understood is ISO is not just about preparing a standard and giving it off. It also, like I told you, has a global outlook. It has to look at whether the particular contribution that is being made will help the human society, will help the environment at large. So for this reason, they have developed something called as sustainable development. There are several, almost 17 sustainable goals which has to be incorporated within a particular standard. Now, it is not necessary that all the 17 have to be there in every standard, but then each standard will tell what sustainable development goal that it is achieving. Okay. Now, as you can see, there are several stages, but these are the most important stages. Sum and substance, preliminary stage, proposal stage, preparatory stage, committee stage, inquiry stage, approval stage, and publication stage. With the publication stage over, it comes out to the general public as a standard. Okay. Now, each of these points which are here has a graphic representation which is divided into 3 parts. The first column, which is colored, is the stage. Now, the next column, it has 2 substages. The first substage is the preliminary stage, and the second substage, which starts with 90, is the decision stage. In this decision stage, there are at various levels, there is a voting requirement. So, we talked that it has to be consensus based. It has to be, it has to affect a majority of the countries and things like that. So at 00 stage itself, it might get rejected because all the countries might not feel the requirement for that standard to be developed at a global level. So once it is voted and takes place, then it moves to the next stage. One more thing that we need to know is, if there is already a standard by ISO, then when it is getting renewed or when it is getting retired, the 00 phase is not considered. This is for an extremely new item that is coming into play or coming alive. Only then it goes through the 00 stage. Then next you have the proposal stage. In the proposal stage, you have, then it becomes a project. Now, once it becomes a project, it will go to the review and the review gets closed. So this is the preliminary stage. Then you have the decision stage. So with the decision stage, you know whether the project has to be taken up or it has to be abandoned. So there is one more check here whether it can move forward or not. Then once you have the proposal stage, it goes to the preparation stage. Now here in the preparation stage, it becomes a working document. That is it is a working document, and it can be a committee draft. Now, once it becomes a committee draft, it gets circulated amongst the various technical committee members or the policy development committee members, and it sorts of builds over a period of time for the particular issues to be addressed properly in a very standardized mechanism, right? So this will get converted into a technical committee specification and a supplementary committee specification. All these stages will be done at the preliminary stage. When it moves to the next stage, the committee stage. The committee stage, you have the committee draft. So it gets registered, it gets studied, and where required, it might also have a ballot or a voting requirements. Once this stage is over, it will go into the inquiry stage. And in the inquiry stage, it is called as a draft international standard. So many of the experts who are registered or working on behalf of other governments or behalf of themselves at times, representing the organization, representing the country, not the organization, representing the country, it gets circulated to them. And this draft international standard is not yet available to the public. But when it goes to the next stage, it becomes the FDIS, that is the final draft of the international standard. Now, this final draft of the international standard, based upon certain people who are interested, can log into the ISO site and then find out for the FIDS that has been published, and you can download such FIDS that is published, go through. If it is interesting to you, you can make comments on that and return it back to your country representative, who in turn will incorporate that as a part of the changes that is required and sends it back to the committee for their own review. Once all these things are over and FIDS also is approved, chances are sometimes the DIS and the FIDS might not be required. If those two stages are not required, it will come directly to the publication stage, that is 60. Now, this international standard, once it comes to the publication stage, then it is circulated, it is publicly available, it is a public document. So whatever we are purchasing as 9001 document or 27001 document is that kind of a document which has already been published by the ISO. So this normally is sold through the local country certification bodies, right? Now, every certification, every standard has an age limitation, because technology changes, world changes, environment changes. So the standard also might be outdated, might not meet today's requirements. So then for that reason, every standard undergoes a 5-year cycle. So once that 5-year cycle is over, it goes to the review stage. Based on the review stage, it can either be coming in as a new edition. If people who are practicing ISO 27001 know that we had the edition 2005, and then we had the edition 2013, and now it is under various stages for further. And if you know about 22301, you had 2013 and then as 2018. So these are the editions. So within these periods, these come as reviewed and gets reissued. If the committee finds that it has no value, it gets to withdrawn too. So that is about the various stages. Now, I have whatever I have explained is given in the form of text here. So it gets registered as a new item proposal, NWIP, and it is submitted to the committee for vote. Here the mechanism is explained, and once it reaches the stage 10, then you have below, I have given what are all the resources required. These are all the various resources that are required so that the proper mechanism is followed to ensure that it is required or not required, and whether it is based on consensus or it is not based on consensus. From there, it will move to the preparation stage. Here, the working group will be looking into, they will be working with this policy development committees also, this working group. They might be referring it to the technical committees also. So based upon this, there will be a parent company who will prepare the working draft, and this working group will normally consist of experts. Like I told you, if we have registered ourselves as experts, we are also being called for meetings pertaining to the ISO of the standard in which we have registered as an expert. And there will be a convener who will be called as a project leader, just like any other business mechanism. They also have project leaders, technical committees, team members and all. They all work together to see that it passes through the preparatory stage, and it will be circulated appropriately and voted. So there is a link here, how to write a standard, that can also be used for people who are interested. Then you have the committee stage, which I already explained, which will become a committee draft and get circulated. Then it goes to the inquiry stage, where it is the DIS and the FDIS. Then it comes to the approval stage. Now, again, like I already told you, that it can be skipped or it need not be skipped based upon the requirement. Ultimately, you get this publication stage. Now, once in the publication stage, then it is available to the public people as a paid service. So ISO is number of pages, because it has to recover the stationery and the administrative cost for supplying you with the standard, and it is not a profitable venture for the ISO as an organization. So they are trying to recover the administrative cost of supplying the standard. So the price is towards that purpose only. That is about the publication stage. So with this, let us see how and where we are able to see all these things. If you have gone to any of the standard, not the purchase standard, but before you purchase, when you want to review the standard, if you are able to see, you will find this information in that particular page on the ISO website, iso.org. Okay, so it shows the publication date. Now, when I mean date, it is only year and month, right? And it shows which was the technical committee. Now, whatever I have gathered here, all belong to the management systems, and hence all of them will normally be either ISO or JCT, that is Joint Technical Committee, right? So these are the committees, and these are the teams. ICS 350 pertains to IT security only. So like that, there are many other teams which are going into detail. And as you can see in the left side corner, it shows at the what stage of the life cycle that particular standard is. Now, if you are going to visit for some other standard, you might even see a particular standard under 30. That means to say it is not yet released. And if you see anything under 40 or 50, that means to say that standard is available as the final draft international standard, which can be downloaded for your review. Like I told you, you should be authorized to do so. Uh, Again, another one you can see on the left bottom again is the revision and the coriander, whatever the correction that has happened. So it shows that now it is new, it has been published and it has been released. It has been released on such and such a date. Now, this is for a particular standard. So this is 27,000 standard. Now, if you are looking at some other standard, the 14,000 standard, you can see it was as old as 2004 edition. Okay. This was under review was the 2005 edition. So it has gone into the review stage, and over a period of time, based upon the fact, it might get released as 2019 or 2020 edition, right? So if there are any additional corrections that has been made to the standard, it gets released, and you can see on the standard page about that particular information that is available. So it also gives you the reference of the previous number. Many a times the number might not be carried forward. In here you are seeing 27,001 2005, which has been carried forward as 27,000 2013. But then it can also be that it is 27,001 2005. If you are able to look at even more previously, it was 7755 earlier, and 7755 of an older British standard was getting converted into 27,001 2005. So if you are going to see the 2005 publication number, you would have seen the previous number to be 7755. So that is so what we are trying to show here is how the connectivity is maintained. So once this is all the review stage only, you must remember. So once the review is over and it is coming back to 10, 20 or 30 stage, it will tell you on what it is being replaced with. So you, as if it is of any interest, you will definitely know what is the stage at which the circulation, stage at which the standard is getting developed or being in the process. Now this is about the standard itself. Now let me give you a little bit about the sustainability goals. So for this standard, which is referred to in the top, you can see that almost a 13 sustainability development goals can be achieved. This is for environment. So that is the reason you are able to get so many goals, 14,000 that is. So what are all these various sustainability goals? So as you can see here, one of the sustainability goal is based upon the standard or based upon the requirement, it should alleviate poverty, right? It must have a zero hunger. It must help in good health and well-being. Now, what are we trying to say this? Why is this coming in? You must understand that many standards, many requirements, many technologies create and generate waste. And when the waste is disposed of in the environment, it is going to bring about a lot of changes in the environment, like land is no longer tillable, water is no longer drinkable, air is no longer breathable. So these are all directly or indirectly connected to these sustainability goals: no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, clean water, affordable and clean energy, decent work. So you are having these 17 goals which needs to be achieved as a part of the requirement when developing a standard. So that means to say at stage 3.30, then itself you are going to look at what are all the standards, what are all the sustainability requirements that might get attached to a particular standard. So this is the 27,000 series where you have this committee of 27, which talks about information security, cyber security, and privacy. For this, there are 198 published ISO standards, 86 standards which are under development, and there are 48 participating members and 32 observing members. All these details are available. Now, this is what helps the standard to become globally accepted. This is what that helps bring about integration between the activity between countries, so that there is the chain can extend, especially if you're looking at today's supply chains, especially if you are looking at today's globalization, all these things, if we don't have this standardization across, the purpose might not get served. That is how the ISO standards have become more and more popular. Each of these particular standard will have their own scope. So this is the scope that pertains to 27001. I am not delving deep into this. This is just to show you that there is a scope. If it is 14,000, it will be different. If it is 20,000, it will be different. If it is 22,301, it is going to be different. If it is 9,000, it is going to be different. So the scope and even the teams there, that is the ISO, JTC teams also would vary. So what are these teams? So these are the various teams that are there. There are many. Like I told you, there are 250. I have just taken a snapshot of the top 7 for you to understand that these are all license committees that are available, which are going to meet and discuss the various standards during the course of their development. So these are all, the previous one was license committees, and these are the structures based upon the committee, who is going to be there and what. You have the chairman's advisory group, the concept and terminology group, you have the cryptography requirements group. So these are all the structures. So they are the working groups which provide you additional information when a standard is being developed. Now, are they enough? It is totally so internal. Is it so? No. There are many professional organizations that they are going to get consulted with. As you can see, some of them are ISE2, ISACA, ENISA. So there are many such professional organizations who also indirectly participate in the development of the standard. So with this, I have come to the end of my presentation. I hope it was informative. I hope it has added value to all your knowledge. I wish you all a very happy Diwali coming. This is a festival season between Dasra and Diwali. I again thank Alvin Integrated for this opportunity. I am open for questions. I will close this presentation if needed. Yeah, over to you, Adya.
Thank you, Mr. Sesha Prakash Kusuman, sir, for enlightening us with your kind words. I would now request you to kindly help our attendees in clearing their doubts, as you are already asked for the questions. So, for you, the first question is, let me see here. Okay, so the first question is, what is the difference in ISO and IEC? And why there is IEC needed when ISO is there?
Okay. IEC is the Electronic Commission, International Electronic Commission. IEEC is Electronic Engineering and Electricity Commission. So why these associations are required is they bring in the technical part of it. You remember I was telling you that there are working committees and there are technical committees. These are all coming from these organizations. For example, when we are talking of cryptography in 27001, or when we are talking of some other fire extinguishers in 22003, 301, or whether we are talking of a technical specification in a software, how are you going to get contributing information to develop the standard? So there has to be some authoritative body. Experts are there, there is no doubt, but then experts give their opinions. Experts have their own personal bias. Experts might be looking at country's perspective or region perspective. They might not be looking at the overall requirement. Whereas when you are having a technical committee, the technical committee will be represented by IEC or IEEC, or there are many other, like I told you, 250 technical committees. So it is showing that ISO and IEC were the joint technical committee in the development of that particular standard. So with the example of 27001, that is the reason you saw that JTC, Joint Technical Committee, and the SC, there are 27, Subcommittee 27. So these organizations are represented in the committee, and they are the ones who are going to give the technical purview. Like I told you, it might not be technology per se, but adoption of technology in a managerial mechanism. That is what they are going to bring onto the table, and that is how it gets incorporated. Like I was telling you, in access control mechanism, a CCTV camera requirement as a part of physical security, a cryptographic algorithm that is required. Who is going to give all this information? It has to be such international bodies that has to give. That is the reason ISO will pair up with them and obtain that required information, so that when the standard gets implemented, then because there is a globally recognized institution behind the requirement, it gets easy and it becomes compatible. I hope I have answered the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for answering that question for me. And we have another question. Probably it's similar to that one. Okay. So the next question is from SM Elaswal, and he's asking, what about IMS? Is it standard or comprehensive systems covering different standards?
Come again, what was that, this one? Acronym?
Is it IMS? Is it a standard or a comprehensive systems covering different standards? IMS. Yes.
What is IMS?
Integrated Management Systems.
Okay. Okay. Integrated management systems. See, basically, if you have seen the management systems latest offering, that it has commonalized the structure. So people who are familiar with the various clauses, from clause number 4 to 10, the headings are the same. What was happening and what is happening is, when organizations implement multiple standards. For example, the normal combination is ISO 9000, ISO 14,000, and OSHA's 18,000. Today changed to ISO 45,000. That is occupational health management system. So these three were integrated as a management system within organizations, and when it came to be audited, each class was different, and they had to maintain a different set of documents for each of the clauses. So over a period of time, they felt that this one leads to unwanted, such a differentiation leads to unwanted complication in the maintenance of records. So integrated management systems was meant to commonalize certain structures. So when we are talking of leadership, when we are talking of audit, when we are talking of risk, when we are talking of context, all these things should become addressed in a single document, immaterial of the number of management systems you have. So that is the reason it is called as integrated management system. But there are many integrated management systems, but these are all combinations of these various management systems which I told. The most popular integrated management system is 9,000, 14,000 and 45,000 from a quality perspective and occupational health perspective. From an IT perspective, it is 20,000, 22, 301 and 27,000. That is an integrated management system. But then with effect from 2013, when the common structure came in, the integrated management system became more easy in a manner that you can have all the 12, 13, 15 standards within an organization in their different departments, but you end up having a common set of documents. So auditing becomes easy. Again, earlier what used to happen when they did not have integrated management system, for 9,000 a separate auditor used to come, for 14,000 a separate auditor used to come. Many a times the comments of the auditors or the observation of the auditors was in conflict with each other. So the effort started somewhere in 2007 and they were able to come to their conclusion by 2013. And if you have seen from 2013 and onwards, class 4 to class 10 has the same headings, though it might vary in its subsections to some extent. This advantage is now that it can get integrated. Integrated management system is not a separate system. It is a combination of the existing management systems based on any permutation and combination that the organization wishes to implement. I hope.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, I have one follow-up question for you. I want to ask, is all the ISO 27001 controls, like all the 144 controls which are mentioned in the ISO, are they all are mandatory, or organizations have to select a few controls by their choice, and then they have to get certified, that they have to get ISO certified? Is it is it customized, or we should implement all the controls mentioned in the ISO?
Okay. First, let me answer one question, which is directly not related to your question, but is applicable. Now, the ISO standard itself, first and foremost, whether you want to adapt it or not, adapt it or not, is up to you as a management. Now, but so to that extent, it is a voluntary requirement. You can take it up, you need not take it up. But once you take it up, the requirements of the ISO becomes mandatory. So you need to, some of the, earlier there used to be a clause that these particular clauses are mandatory and these particular clauses are not mandatory. But today with the common structure of class 4 to class 10, everything has become mandatory. Now coming to your question pertaining to 27001. 27001 is an ISMS. What is ISMS? It is an information security management system. Now, as is information security management system, it is a security, how you are going to manage security. To be frank, the standard itself says you need not adopt Annexure A controls of those 35, control objectives are 114 controls. You need not even use them. But if you are going to use them, there is a requirement that you need to justify whether you need it or you don't need it. Now, if you say, I have no need for this, for example, if you say cryptography, I have no need, I have no need for access management. It is difficult, but I'm just giving you an hypothetical example. You can justify why you don't need it and take the rest. But if you are looking at 27 Annex A controls, implementing Annex A controls is not compulsory. Instead, I may take NIST 853, or I may take PCI DSS, or I may take ENISA, or I may take CISA related set of controls. I may take cloud security alliance controls. I may take computer internet security structure. You understand, what I adapt as a management system, the controls can come from any of these source. It is not necessary that you should use Annex A controls only. I hope you have understood. But if you are using Annex A controls, you need to justify whether you need the control or you don't need the control. If you have no need for the control, when an auditor comes in, for the purpose of audit, he should be able to read and understand justification, or you must be able to, as management representative, you must be able to express why you don't need it. I hope I'm
Okay.
clear.
Okay, yes, sir. Actually, I was curious to know this because I was thinking that in PCI we have to implement all of the controls. Yeah, a particular organization they have to implement all the controls to get PCI certified. So was thinking about what was it for ISO, but yes, you clarified it pretty well. So thank you so much for that.
Yep. Okay.
Uh,
Any other?
okay, so yes, we have another question from Loganathan Madhuswamy. So he is asking if we skip any control in beginning and after and later on we require the same control, then are we able to add that control?
Two ways. It is possible both ways. Today you might need the control. Tomorrow you might not need the control.
Okay.
Today you don't need the control. Tomorrow you may need the control. See, especially if there are organizations which are migrating to cloud. Once they migrate to cloud, the data center based controls are no longer required, whether it is a physical control or whatever segregation that is required from a physical secure room and things like that. So what I'm trying to say here is, with the change in the environment, you may justify a requirement, you may justify not requiring a requirement, not implementing a requirement. So both ways it is possible. You might not have implemented earlier, but today you need it.
Oh,
For example, you might not look at cryptography as a great control in the initial stages, but as your servers, laptops and other devices increase, cryptography becomes a requirement. So then you are going to bring in the control, justify. Now, where and how this is going to be seen by an auditor? Now, when an auditor is coming to a audit, he is going to see this change during the surveillance audit or a recertification audit. And that is where it gets recognized that the control is there or not. But then, as an organization, you should not be waiting for an auditor to certify it. Instead, you should be looking at your own internal requirement from a security perspective and a risk perspective.
okay. Okay, thank you so much, sir, for clarifying this one.
Yep. Okay.
Now, yes, thank you for your time. I think we have covered all the questions from our attendees, so no question is left now.
Good. 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 Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you again, all the participants. Thank you very much. Wish you all a happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali to you, sir. Thank you.
Can I leave?
And now I would like to take a moment uh, to tell everyone about the series of webinar AIS has launched. So if you want, sir, then you can stay and listen
Yeah. Go ahead.
this
Go
one
ahead.
also.
Go ahead.
Yes. So we have taken this initiative to offer knowledge of various compliance domains to professionals and organizations in participating with some of the industry's most seasoned and highly qualified experts with a series of webinars. Today's session was the third webinar under the series. ISO standards compliance ensures quality and maintains the requisite procedural safety in any trade service. Organizations get benefit from the compliance with the improved systems and procedures that are put in place. In today's competitive world, ISO compliance product service providers get an edge over others as they carry the trust of the particular ISO standards they are certified in. Hence, we are proud to announce our the ISO knowledge sharing webinars series with special emphasis on the benefit of various ISO standards. Before we disperse, I would like to thank you on behalf of each member of Team AIS for attending today's session and for making this webinar successful. We hope to see you in our future sessions as well. Kindly support our initiative and follow us on our LinkedIn page, Alvin Integrated Services. Now we request you to kindly share your valuable feedbacks in the chat box. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Shesh, for the very informative session. It was so enlightening us. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And
My pleasure.
thank you, all the participants, for joining today. Hope it was informative for you also. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Adya. Thank you, Mr. Shesh, again. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Bye.